Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to discuss about session tracking. Session means a particular interval of time. Session tracking is a way to maintain the state of a user. It is also known as session management in server. HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol, so we need to maintain state using session tracking techniques. Each time the user requests to the server treats the request as the new request. So we need to maintain the state of a user to recognize the particular user. HTTP is a stateless, that means each request is considered as the new request. Then what are the session tracking techniques you are having? There are four session tracking techniques you are having. First one is the cookies, hidden form field, URL rewriting, and HTTP session. Now I'll explain you in detail. By default, HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol, but it is possible to convert the HTTP protocol behavior from stateless into stateful. To do this, we need a concept called session tracking. Session tracking is a mechanism of converting the stateless protocol into stateful protocol. Stateless means when multiple requests are given by the same client to a server, then the server does not recognize that all these requests are given by the same client. Stateful means when multiple requests are given to a server by the client, then the server recognizes that all these requests are given by the same client. And session tracking is a mechanism of converting HTTP protocol behavior. And this can be done by using two techniques, one is session management and state management. And session tracking is nothing but session management plus state management. Stateless behavior means a server does not use first request data while processing the second request and the first and second request data while processing the third request. This behavior is stateless, which is due to HTTP protocol. In case of stateful, server uses the first request data while processing the second request, first and second request data while processing the third request, and so on. Why developers give HTTP protocol as stateless? Whenever a browser is sending request to a server, then HTTP protocol opens a connection with the server, and when response is given back to the client, then HTTP protocol closes the connection. So for each request, HTTP protocol will do the work of opening the connection and closing the connection. If HTTP protocol is given as stateful, then it opens the connection but does not close the connection until the browser is closed. If the browser is not closed for a long time, then the connection is also not closed. And if a server maintains connections for long period of time, then burden on the server is increased. So that the developers give HTTP protocol as the stateless. Now, what is this session management? Session management means whenever a client request is given to server, then server should recognize whether this client is existing or a new one. A server recognizes by using an identification value called token. Whenever a client request is given, server first finds whether any token is sent along with the request. First, when new request is given from the client, the server creates a new token for that client. And if any token is sent along with the request, server recognizes that the client is existing. If no token is coming, then server identifies that the client is new one and creates a new token. Whenever response is given back to client, then along with response, server will send token back to the client. When the same client is sending request for the second time, along with the request, the token is sent to the server. So server can recognize that client is existing. For session management, server will follow a technique called token exchanging. Now, what is the state management? State management means storing client data at the server in an object. Server creates one object for each client and stores data of the client. The number of clients working with server is equal to number of session objects created in the server. And the advantage of storing the data is whenever a client request is given, then server can use old or previous data of the client for processing the request. Session tracking is generating a session ID or a token and session object data for a client. For example, in online shopping website, whenever a customer enters for first time, then an ID is created for the customer and an object is created. The ID is created to identify the customer across the website, and an object is created for storing the data or items selected by the customer. For each new customer, an online website server creates both ID and object. It means session tracking is mandatory for an online shopping application. So now session tracking with servlets. In servlet technology, we have four techniques to perform, as I said. The four techniques for session tracking are HTTP session, hidden fields, cookies, and URL rewriting. In the above four techniques, HTTP session and URL rewriting are for complete session tracking, that is session plus state management, whereas hidden fields and cookies are for partial session tracking, that is only state management. So hope you understood. This is about the session tracking. So I'll continue in the next class.